Welcome back to the series Coding is Not Hard, a series where I program a feature and explain along the way how the code works. So today we are going to rework the unit information tab. You can see that the buttons at the bottom are not even inside the frame and that the text is very big. So let's make the text a little bit smaller at the beginning. So therefore we have to find the right function. The function is called @infoText, I think. And that's not the right function. But the right function is here at the top. @info is the function called, and here you can see that we pass in the size normal, and we will take one size smaller, and that will be the size small bigger, because it's a little bit bigger than the small size, but not as huge as the normal size. And now the size text is a little bit smaller, and the buttons are almost inside the frame. And now the next step will be two things. First, the buttons all should be at the bottom of the frame, and also the text of the checkboxes are very small that you can't really read them. So it would be better if they would be a little bit bigger. So this will be similar to the text size change we already did. So let's get right to it. First, here we create the buttons. So we can just copy the buttons and put them down behind the creation of the checkbox. And they will just align at the bottom. And we have here, yes. And the start variable will just count the Y offset, so the current Y position. And here we can change the text size from small to small bigger, and then the text from the checkboxes should be a little bit bigger, but they are still very small because I didn't write it correctly. And now the texts are bigger. And now the checkboxes are a little bit too big because they overlap, but we can set the margin a little bit bigger so that every checkbox has more space in Y direction. And also it would help if we make the checkboxes a little bit smaller. And also the checkboxes should be a little bit above the describing text that near the checkbox. For example, there was a text automatic attack, and the checkbox is more huge than the text, so it should be a little bit above. The checkbox should start a little bit above the text. So therefore we have to think what the right size would be to move the checkbox or the text downwards or the checkbox upwards. That would make no difference. And that should be half of the size of the text, and also half of the size of the checkbox. And now the text is the checkbox is a little bit upwards, but also a little bit huge. So let's just make it a little bit smaller. So here we have the checkbox size, and we multiply 50 times 3, and just let's make it to 50 times 3 before it was 4. And now it looks really good, and we can keep going. And it works as before, but still there's a button outside of the frame. And that will be the last thing we make in the video. And the next thing we will do is to change the checkbox design, because it's brown, and I think if I make it just black with a transparent background, then it should look a little bit better. And also we have to change the ticked image. So let's change this image, and the image gets loaded automatically when the game starts. And now the checkbox fits a little bit more to the text and to the rest of the information tab. So the last thing we will do is to make the buttons next to each other and also capitalize the text, because automatic was not capitalized and now it's capitalized. And also the buttons should be next to each other and not above each other. So therefore we have to copy the name of the button, because when creating an element in this GUI engine or this UI engine, every element gets a name, and we can get the name and then change the position of this button by after we get the component. So here, where we create the buttons, we can get the buttons by going to the parent frame and say get comp, and then put the name of the button inside of the brackets, and then we can set the position. And something else that I just found is that there's already a move rect function that moves the button to a given position or by a given position, and there we can just input the coordinates we want to move it, so x positions in the 100 positions in the x direction and 0 in the y direction, and you can see that the button moved. So that works. So now we have to just figure out what the correct parameters are for the translation. So there you have to try a little bit if you are not sure what the correct values are. Sometimes trying helps. But 100 wasn't that bad, so let's move every button that we have: the attack button, the interact button, and the craft button. And let's create a variable button delta, but I think we don't even need it. The thing is that the first two buttons will be on the same y coordinate, so therefore we don't need the start variable, because remember, the start variable saves the y coordinate where the next component will be spawned. And since the buttons should be next to each other, the y position doesn't change. So for the first button we can just not upgrade the start variable, and by doing that the buttons will be next to each other. And now the first two buttons will be next to each other, and the attack button will be on the left side, the interact button on the right side, and the craft button on the left side. And now all frames are inside of the, all buttons are inside of the frame, but they are a little bit far to the outside and not centered. So let's change the movement to 80 and not 200, and now they are a little bit more in the center. And I also tried to change the button size here. And now we got a nicer frame, and I like the way it looks now. And thanks for watching, and if you liked the video, consider subscribing, like, comment, and bye bye.